I loved how we talked about not hiring his friends and finding sort of guys that were good at different elements of running offense. The gun run stuff that Bieniemy brings, and some of Sean Payton's done all kinds of clever, creative things with his run game over the years.
Yes.
Like, I like how he talked about finding those elements that they can bring together for this offense. A couple of interesting things. I'm going to play a few bites for you. And this is about the running game. This is about his building out his coaching staff. Take a listen to this. I thought this was interesting. My ears perked up a little. I mean, as he kind of spoke to his philosophy of how they put this staff together and how they assembled it. He doesn't have a relationship with Dennis Allen. He doesn't have a relationship with Declan Doyle, not like a real concrete direct one, or Eric Bieniemy. And he's got these different voices and different minds that he's brought on board. Take a listen to him talk about some of the offensive philosophies and the way he built out the staff.
Yeah, there is a marriage between the two, there's no doubt, but I would agree with what you just said. You don't necessarily have to be a great running team to get reaction in the play-action game. I think it all starts with what your line up front can do, what your backs do well, and you take it from there. And listen, what's so beautiful about the coaching staff that we put together is I didn't hire a bunch of my friends. I went outside of my circle on purpose because I wanted to collect a different mix of experience, of energy, ideas, and we're all going to make it come together, and it's going to be the Chicago Bears going forward. And so it can look a number of different ways. Eric Bieniemy's got a lot of experience in the gun run game and what they did in Kansas City, obviously. And Declan has a lot of success from the Sean Payton tree, and Press Taylor has a lot of success from the Chip Kelly all the way on. And so we've got a lot of library, if you will, to draw from, and we'll see it all come together once we get our hands on these guys.
I thought that was a really interesting answer, Jurg. I don't know if you agree, and it all started because he was talking about marrying sort of running game principles and play action, and do you have to be good at running the ball to be good to run an effective play action game? Look, I know not everybody loves this thought process. This is a little bit more new age stuff in the NFL, and some people think it's too analytical, and there is some pretty good relevant data, though, that does suggest you don't have to be a great running team to effectively run play action pass. And that's what he's talking about. But I loved how we talked about not hiring his friends and finding sort of guys that were good at different elements of running offense. The gun run stuff that Bieniemy brings, and some of Sean Payton's done all kinds of clever, creative things with his run game over the years.
Yes.
Like, I like how he talked about finding those elements that they can bring together for this offense.
So you ask yourself, when you hear something like that, I didn't hire, any of my friends. Well, how many friends do you actually have? That's the first thing I figure out. Does the guy have 1,000 friends in the NFL? Does he have a bunch of people that he could have chosen, but chose not to hire those people and went with what he thought would be the best coaching staff possible, doing it the way he does? Or does the guy just have no friends, and it's easy for him to say, hey, I didn't hire any of my friends. I don't have any, but, I just hired these guys. So, that's how, first of all, that's how I want to digest it. First of all, my assumption he does, but he wanted to go a specific way about building this coaching staff.
Yeah.
And maybe he's seen it on his way up, done that way somewhere else, and it worked, and that's why he wants to do it that way.
He's coached 13 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you think he's got some connections and some friends that he's built over that time.
Connections for sure, but just because you have connections don't necessarily mean they're friends.
Okay. What do you think of this bite?
Colleagues.
Okay. This is on DeAndre Swift. I'm glad this was asked, and this kind of feels like a coach sort of tap dancing a little, doesn't it? Trying to talk about DeAndre Swift, whom he had in Detroit, but they got rid of. They added a running back via the draft. They signed David Montgomery.
That's a GM move.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a GM move. Ben Johnson may have had nothing to do with that. He may have come to work one day and said, hey, we're not going to keep Swift. We're going to go a different direction.
Okay.
And then as an offense coordinator, like, oh, okay. And, you try to adjust on the fly. Okay, that's not going to bother us. He's going to get paid more money. He's going to go someplace else. That may not be his issue at all.
Here was Johnson talking about DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, so I was with Swifty when we first drafted him in Detroit a number of years ago, and I followed his career even after he left Detroit, and think very highly of him. He's an explosive athlete. There's a number of things that he can do both in the running game and the passing game. I do think he can help ignite an offense because he's got that playmaking ability. So it'll be fun to start to work together again here this springtime with him.
Okay. He called him Swifty.
Yeah.
Maybe he does like it.
I think most coaches like the players they have, and they understand it. Eventually, it becomes a business. We had a guy, Blaze Winter, that was with the Green Bay Packers in 1991. They let him go. Blaze went out to San Diego and played for them out there. He was on that. He was on that Super Bowl team in 1994. Yeah.
With Natron.
Right. So most of the guys and coaches dig their players and they hope for the best, but they realize at some point I can only keep an X amount. Lester Archambault.
Yeah, that's what you've always talked about.
Lester was with us out of Stanford. Yeah. He was with us came out the same year I did. He was with us in Green Bay. Lester played 13, 14 years. Went down to the Atlanta Falcons and played forever down there.
Yeah.
So just because guys end up getting released doesn't mean a coach doesn't care.
Yeah.
Blaž could have told you everything about all the guys that he was coaching. But at some point, they've got to make decisions, and some guys get the short end of the stick, and that's just the way it works sometimes.
Yep.
So he's coming in. He's trying to be positive about Swifty, right?
Swifty, yeah.
But at the end of the day, you've got to get the most production per dollar spent. Are you getting the production you need per dollar spent? I don't think you can move off of them. I think you just let them go after next year.
Okay.
You're
probably right about that.
Doesn't mean that you don't address the position some other way by getting some young depth back there.
And here's another one for you. Just one more. This is about the O-line. Can they potentially fix 60% of that O-line? Like guard to guard, is it all going to look different? Can you do that in one offseason? I think Courtney asked this question. Here was Ben Johnson earlier today at the Combine.
Yeah, I think it's been done before, right? I mean, I think there's a number of teams that did that last year. The Panthers come to mind when they went out in free agency and got a couple top guards and really changed the dynamic of their offense. And you saw them clicking there in the second half of the season once they started to really gel. So there's no question that you can change the dynamic of a room just like that. That particular room, it does take a little bit of time for five guys to come together, especially if you have to deal with the attrition and the injuries, for five guys to be working on the same page. It's when you watch the tape and you come away with, I think I made this statement in my opening press conference that that's an area we have to get better. That doesn't necessarily mean we need five new starters, because all it takes is one individual to blow up a play. And so we're just identifying where we can get a little bit better, and we're going to continue to raise that floor, and we'll find the right mix of 5 to 8, 9, 10 guys.
There's Ben Johnson's answer to that. And then Jurk also brought up Washington. I mean, Tyler Biadasz and Nick Allegretti were added during free agency a year ago. Look what that did for that offensive line. Tyler Biadasz was a guy we talked about a lot, maybe that the Bears should look at. They went the Coleman Shelton route instead, and Shelton at times was okay, but look, he needs to be upgraded. I mean, there needs to be an upgrade there.
Yes, there does.
We all know that. It wasn't good enough. 312-332-3776. That's the number. Crosstalk in about 15 minutes. It's Carmen and Jurk. We'll be right back.